When it comes to corner-hungry sport compact cars, Hyundai may not have the same track record as rivals like Volkswagen, Subaru, and Honda, but the company made a pretty big splash when they introduced the hottest Elantra ever, known as the Elantra N, to America all the way back in 2022. It instantly got a big loyal group of followers for its powerful turbocharged engine, its slick shifting 6-speed manual, and a rambunctious exhaust noise that was one of the best sounds that you'd find in the segment. Now, last year, Hyundai gave the Elantra family a pretty significant overhaul that mostly focused on updating the exterior styling. So for 2025, everything stays pretty much the same, but as you can see this week, Hyundai has loaned us the latest Elantra N painted in this pure white exterior color. It certainly still has a look that screams boy racer, but with up to 276 horsepower underneath the hood with a standard 6-speed manual, this promises a lot of smiles per dollars, especially when you look at the price point. So the big question I want to answer, for those of you who have roughly $35,000 to spend and you want something that has the sound and visceral experience that you expect from a modern sport compact, how does the latest version of the Elantra N stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the latest exterior design for the 2025 Elantra N, let me go ahead and pop the hood and remind you guys what makes this vehicle special. And that, of course, has to do with the motor, because unlike some competitors which use a smaller turbocharged engine, Hyundai decided to go with a big 2-liter engine that honestly splits the power difference between vehicles like a GTI and a Volkswagen Golf R. Now, under the hood, you're going to see a transverse-mounted 2-liter gasoline direct injection turbocharged engine. The turbocharger can pump this thing up with up to 17 pounds of max boost pressure, and the power output figures here are basically unchanged: 276 horsepower and 289 pound-feet of torque. Now, I want to notate that if you guys go with the dual-clutch transmission, an 8-speed dual-clutch, there's an overboost feature which will allow this vehicle to produce up to 286 horsepower for up to 20 seconds. With the manual, you don't get that feature, so the max power is still 276. That is more power versus what you're going to get in vehicles like the Civic Si, the GTI, and that's even more power versus Subaru's own WRX, which is kind of shocking to see. It all goes out through my test car's 6-speed manual transmission. That's the standard transmission, and the power only flows to the front wheels through a corner carving mechanical limited slip differential. It's going to need that diff to put that power and that torque figure down, because that's one of the strongest you're going to find in the front wheel drive game. Now, fuel economy is kind of a sour point. It's rated at 21 in the city and 29 on the highway. That's decent, but at the same time, it's thirstier versus competitors like the Volkswagen GTI, which, as you can see, is sitting in my garage over there. And with its 12.4-gallon fuel tank, you're lucky if you can crack 300 miles of range on a full tank on premium gas. Now, Hyundai doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. The last manual model that we tested did it in around 5.8 seconds, so we'll get out on the road and see what we can get this time. Top speed is around 155 miles an hour, and this is one of the lightest vehicles in the class because it's front-wheel drive, weighing in at just under 3,200 pounds. Now, closing the heavy hood, let's go ahead and talk about the exterior design of the updated Elantra N. As you can see, my test car is painted in a color called Atlas White. It certainly looks good with all of the black and red accents that you get with the N model. You can see the front fascia got a significant upgrade or redesign last year. You can see the hood has lots of creases and bulges. There's a blacked out Hyundai logo there that's front and center. You also get an N badge there off to the passenger side of the grille, and the front end was definitely cleaned up versus the pre-refresh model. The headlights got a little bit slimmer. They look a little bit more sinister. You can see they are a full LED, which includes an LED daytime running light, LED low and high beams, LED turn signals. I still don't love the fact that the front bumper is kind of half unpainted and half painted, but I think it also looks a little bit better versus the pre-refresh model. I also like the red line, or it's technically like an orangey red that goes along the front splitter. You have some functional openings, of course, along with your integrated parking sensors. No 360 camera on this vehicle, and you also cannot get adaptive cruise control on this model, but as you can see, it definitely looks better than the pre-refresh model, but at the same time, the white exterior with all the black can still be a little bit polarizing. Thankfully, you can fix that by going with a black exterior. I also particularly like their red or their performance blue that's also available. Now, moving around the side profile, you can see the Elantra N is a relatively good-sized sport compact car with its 107.1-inch wheelbase. It has a 184-inch overall length, and you can see there's lots of geometric angles along the side are along the side of the vehicle, along the doors. That kind of creates that triangular shape. You can see the wheels. These are an updated 19-inch gloss, or not really gloss, I'm sorry there. It's a matte black wheel with a double 5-spoke design. Brakes measure 14.2 inches, clamped down by an N-branded red painted caliper. The rears are 12.5-inch rotors, and then the tires are relatively fat. There are two 45 by 35 R19, ZR19 Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tire. These wheels and tires certainly look good, of course, with the white exterior color. That red accent continues along the side splitter. And then this car also comes with their adaptive dampers as standard. That's going to help you fine tune the suspension to give you a more comfortable ride or a sportier dynamic. All independent suspension, obviously, as well, with its N performance tuned dampers. Now, as you can see, the mirrors are black painted. They are not power folding, but they do include an integrated turn signal, no 360 camera or cameras throughout. You can see there's lots of black along the side. And then if you guys are looking for a sunroof, the manual transmission model doesn't offer a sunroof. You can get it as an option if you guys pick the dual clutch transmission model. But then backing away from the vehicle, you can see very distinctive profile, especially when you look at the rear of the car with that wing at the back, although it's not as big of a wing as some competitors, but I do like, you know, the way the Elantra N looks. It certainly looks very distinctive. In fact, when you look at the back end design, you can see Elantra is boldly spelled out at the back with that subtle N badge off to the side, and then you can see the rear wing spoiler. I actually kind of wish it was body colored as opposed to the black. It just kind of makes it stand out more. I don't particularly think in a good way, but you can see the rear bumper also has some unpainted elements to it, which again really stands out when you guys go for the white exterior. The taillights have that trademark and very trendy full LED light bar. It is a combination of an LED and a non-LED. The turn signals, as you can see in the reverse lights, are not LED, they are incandescent. And then of course, being this is the N model, it has these two massive dual exhaust tips, which are chrome tipped. And this car remains one of the best sounding vehicles in the segment. So I'll fire it up. You guys can hear how it sounds real quick. And again, this car's sound really puts its rivals to shame, especially when you look at cars like the Civic Si or Civic Type R. I love the backfires, the pops and crackles. It really just makes you giggle every time you start this vehicle up and start revving it. Now, in terms of the cargo capacity, Hyundai only offers the N as a sedan, but you still have a pretty decent 14.2 cubic feet of storage space, which is usable. These hinges will crush your cargo. And then unfortunately, as you can see, the back seats, they do still fold, but you now have this bracing, which again improves the handling and stiffens the chassis, but it kind of gets in the way if you actually want to put stuff, longer items back there. You can see underneath the floor here, Hyundai does not give you a spare tire. Instead, you just get a fix-a-flat kit and an air compressor, but there's room for a spare tire, but without it, you have some additional underfloor storage. But overall, again, I wish Hyundai would offer this as a hot hatch, but it is still pretty usable for a traditional sedan. Now moving on to the interior of this latest 2025 Hyundai Elantra N. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. As you can see, last year Hyundai updated the key fob for the Elantra family in general with their new egg-shaped light key, although I like the black finish, the satin black finish, as opposed to the shiny silver that you have on other trims. As you can see though, the key is still prone to getting damaged. This model is really relatively new with less than 2,000 miles and it already has scratches there. The key fob itself, when you flip it on its side, actually shows that it's a Hyundai logo, but it's got less buttons on the key for the lock, unlock. There's not even a, or there's no remote start, obviously that's where the remote start button would be, and then there's a panic function, that's to pop open the trunk. And Hyundai does offer their digital key system, although I don't know if they offer it on the Elantra N because again, it's missing some of the features from their more expensive models. Now, as you approach the vehicle, it's got the traditional pull style door handles. Touch that button there or that area there, that will lock the doors. The mirrors do not offer a power fold feature. Hyundai does not offer a walk-away lock or unlock feature, so you have to touch the back of the door handle. That will unlock the door for you. Now, looking at the interior, as you can see, I hope you guys like a black interior because this is the only color combination that Hyundai offers on the N. You can see it's a black leather with a mixture of Alcantara with their performance blue contrast stitch. That right there is their N logo, obviously, that illuminates. These sport bucket seats also look very impressive, and this is something that you see on a lot of modern day BMW M cars, so it's kind of nice to see Hyundai, is taking some of that details there from BMW, which doesn't surprise me. Albert Biermann has been in charge of their performance division for a few years now. The seats, unfortunately, are just a 6-way manual adjusting seat. And you don't even get adjustable lumbar. The seats are 3-level heated, but if you're looking for cooled seats, again, that's not a feature you're going to find in this class. So it feels a little bit Spartan, but some competitors offer a little bit nicer interior cabins. You can see door panel materials are hard touch plastic on this upper portion. It's nice and padded Alcantara here. And you also have a slightly padded area, although this could be softer, to be honest, considering this is where your elbow is going to rest. The driver's window is the only window that's one touch up down. All the other windows don't even have a one touch down feature. The buttons and the controls, they feel a little bit flimsy to me. And you also have this black plastic painted door handle. The Bose stereo system sounds okay. It's not the best audio system. You're going to be really listening to the engine more and the exhaust more. And then down here you can see it's all hard touch plastic. But overall, the interior definitely feels a little bit dark and Spartan. The seats basically brighten things up along with the blue accents, but overall it just kind of feels a little bit chitsy versus some of its rivals. Now getting inside, you can see the low step-in height is typical because this is a sporty sedan. And the seats, I have to say, they are pretty aggressively bolstered. So if you're wider, you may find them to be a little uncomfortable. But once you settle in, for somebody my physique, it's certainly comfortable once you're inside the seat. As I shut the door has a pretty solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on their newest N3 front-wheel drive architecture that also underpins the Kia K4. Now, starting the vehicle up, you can see my test car has the standard 6-speed manual. Put the clutch in. The start-stop button is right here on the dash. And you can hear this is not a mild hybrid or a hybrid, so it has a very traditional starter noise. And you really hear that, you know, bark from the exhaust right away. And you can even make that a little bit louder by putting it into the N mode there. The pops and the crackles, I have to say, are just absolutely hilarious. So love the fact that you can just sit there and just enjoy the exhaust even when you're not driving the vehicle. Now, looking at the rest of this cabin, you can see the infotainment system and the instrument panel hasn't really changed. You still have their standard 10.25-inch displays. So you have dual 10.25-inch displays for the instrument panel and then for the center stack. This is still a touchscreen, but it is lacking their newest CNCC software, which means the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you have to connect via a USB-A dongle here via wired connection. There's no wireless functionality for this infotainment system. It does include GPS, and you can just see that the graphics are their older system. I'm really surprised that Hyundai didn't want to put their newer system in this car. So that's one of the reasons to go with the Kia K4. I would love to see Kia do like an actual K4 GT with this powertrain. So keeping my fingers crossed Kia will do that at some point, because it really shows the age of the Elantra. You can change the way this gauge display looks by switching the drive modes. You can see there's the sport mode, great gauge display, the eco, and then the normal, which I don't like the way the normal looks. So you push this button here, that goes into your N mode, and this turns on and off the rev matching function for the 6-speed manual. And that display there is perfect for when you want to do track driving. This right here supposedly is a place where it's magnetized. You can put things there, I guess magnets there if you'd like. No heads-up display, and then the upper portion of the dash has a soft touch injection molded plastic, but the graining feels a little bit cheap. I do like the ambient light strip that goes across. There's actually interchangeable ambient lighting in this car. And then when you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your backup camera, which has trajectory, it has distance markers, parking sensors, but no 360 camera, obviously. And then there's also a separate drive mode selection button here as well, if you guys want to do that. The shifter, as you can see, pull up on this and then all the way over to the left to go into reverse. To go to the rest of the gears, you can see it's got an actual snickety-snick feel, and I like how short throw it is. So Hyundai's done a great job at making their shifters better. The clutch is definitely on the medium side for heft. And it engages kind of right in the middle of the travel. I don't love the piano black here. There's a nice little grab handle here, but it should have been stitched in leather. This is going to show fingerprints and smudges, and it already is. And this car, again, only has like less than 2,000 miles on it. Love the traditional handbrake, nice padded center console there. And if I open it up, it's a decent size. It fits some of my camera equipment in there. Your two USBs are here, an A and a C, obviously. And then I mentioned earlier the seats, they are a little bit restrained if you guys are of wider frame. And you just basically get 3-level heated seats, no cooled seats, but at least you get dual zone climate control. Lots of hard touch plastics everywhere. The glove box, you can see, even cheaply falls. It's not damped or lined with felt. But at least the visibility is decent. There's no auto-dimming rearview mirror or digital camera mirror. So this, again, reminds you this is an economy car. And also, I hate that the incandescent map lights, which really clashes with the beautiful ambient lighting that Hyundai does. And then the steering wheel, like I said, it's got the new black Hyundai logo here. It should have been a flat bottom design, but it feels nice in your hands for the most part. If you want the dual clutch, it'll include paddles behind the wheel, obviously. But overall, the interior definitely reminds you this is an economy car. Lots of cheap materials. It also has a really cheap smell. I don't like the smell in here. And the infotainment system, while it looks decent, it is their older software, which some of you may actually prefer that. So overall, interior definitely could be, nicer. And that's where the Kia K4 has a much nicer feeling cabin, but there's no GT version of that. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area of this car. Now, as you can see, The Elantra does have one of the bigger back seats in the class. I also love how big the door opens. This allows it to be, easy to load up a child seat. Back here, you can see material quality is the same hard touch plastic. The Alcantara here, it is basically all hard plastic here, which I guess if you put kids back here, this is going to be nice and durable. Window controls, again, they feel a little bit on the cheaper side, and the seats have the same performance blue stitching and the combination of the suede Alcantara and the black. But as I get back here, you can see the back seat offers up to 38 inches of legroom back here, which 38 inches is a pretty generous amount. As you can see, lots of space. This is my preferred driving position. I can easily cross my legs and get comfortable. There is a hump here, which I'm surprised considering there's no drive shaft going to the back wheels. No rear seat air vents, no heated seats. You do get 2 USB-Cs and no storage cubbies here, so that's a little disappointing. And Hyundai also didn't even throw in an armrest here, which is a little bit insulting, but at least the Alcantara holds you in place nicely. An armrest would have been good to kind of hold you in place during aggressive driving. The headroom space, as you can see, isn't great. The roof kind of slopes down, and I only have like maybe an extra inch of clearance. So for a car that lacks a sunroof, the headroom space is pretty disappointing, but at least the legroom space is good. The back doors open in a huge amount, but it is lacking some creature comforts here, like rear seat air vents. That would have been nice to have, especially on a hot day. So here we are back behind the wheel of the latest Hyundai Elantra N. It's probably been about 2 years since I had one for a full week back home to test. I drove the refreshed model out in Northern California about 1.5 years ago. And again, the changes were pretty subtle in terms of the driving characteristics. The look of the car looks a lot different, but this 6-speed manual model is probably the one I would go with. The dual clutch obviously is going to give you the quicker acceleration times, but the manual is just way more engaging, especially, if you guys want to shift at your own gears, because some competitors like the GTI have removed the manual, and thankfully you can still get a GLI with a manual transmission. But just initially setting off, we have the drive mode here in normal. This car reminds you constantly that it is built off of an Elantra. The current Elantra, to me, is at least just starting to show its age. It feels a little bit cheap. The road noise is a little high in this car, and I did hear a couple of squeaks and rattles coming from this plastic, fantastic interior. So I don't love that, but at the same time, it's a very simple car that has, modern displays. And of course, it has a ballsy engine with up to 286 horsepower and overboost. That's only on the dual clutch. 276 horsepower, though, is still nothing to sneeze at. Now, driving this car, normally the clutch definitely takes a little bit of getting used to. It engages right in the middle of the travel for the clutch. The clutch also has medium heft to it. You can drive this car in rush hour traffic just fine. I do like the snickety-snick feel of the transmission. It's a short throw or short throw gearbox with 6 forward gears, obviously, and it very much reminds me of the last Subaru WRX manual transmission. Not quite as snickety good as the manual that's in the Civic Si or the Civic Type R, but at the same time, it shows you that Hyundai's doing a great job at just improving things. The ride quality, though, on the other hand, in this car, even in comfort or normal mode, it's still very bumpy. And that's kind of where some competitors offer a more well-balanced, chassis where you can put it in comfort. It's a little bit more comfortable. Maybe it's also just my old age. I'm finding the ride to be a little bit too intrusive, and the noise levels can be kind of high. But, driving it in this mode here, that's kind of where some of the annoyances pop up. The Elantra N is not a great daily driver without tiring you out constantly. But if you push this N button here, that's where things start to change, because everything goes into maximum attack mode. And when you kind of change your perception to think of this car more as a sports car, along with the active rev match function, that's where this car will seriously put a huge smile on your face. Now, to get the best acceleration, this car does come with launch control. Now, to activate the launch control, you can adjust the revs of the vehicle. I have it set to 3,000 RPM. Basically, to engage the launch control, make sure it's in N mode, which automatically puts the stability control into its less intrusive setting. You basically come to a stop, and then you hit the activate function here. This means it'll last for about 5 minutes, and of course, I forgot to put it into neutral when I started it up there, so it actually decided to stall on me. So let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. Which actually isn't letting me hold it at 3,000, but hey, it says it's activated right now. Now, it does require going into third gear to get into 60, but on that first run there, which is slightly more uphill, we got 6.6 seconds 0 to 60 wise, which isn't great. I actually was able to do much faster in the last one that I tested, but we'll try it up ahead on a more level surface, and we should be able to crack into the 5-second mark, or at least the high fives. The dual clutch, remember, is going to give you even better acceleration because of the ability for the dual clutch to just kind of dump the clutch and put the power down better. But what I love about this car is take a listen to the sound, guys. The pops and the cracks for this car are just absolutely intense. Like, I love the mechanical, visceral sounds. I mean, this is where the car kind of reminds me of that Neon SRT4 back in the day. And then with the rev match function, it just makes it super easy to kind of just drive this car pretty smoothly. And I just love leaving it in second and just listening to the backfires. Now, handling wise, this car, when you put it into its N mode, that stiff ride kind of goes away because the steering is so communicative. It just gives you so much feedback and feel. The chassis also gets into the stiffest setting, and the car just feels like it's ready to attack corners. It has a level of grip and just visceral feel that you don't expect from a Hyundai. And then it has a shift light and buzzer that will let you know when it's time to shift. Oh, this car is so much fun. It is a ton of fun. So I love in N mode here, when it's in maximum attack mode, it reminds you that Hyundai borrowed, the right guy from BMW to tune their chassis. This feels like a proper sport compact. In fact, it feels like an even better sport compact versus a lot of its rivals. So let's try another run here, 0 to 60 wise. I have the launch control active. So let's try that again, because that was horrible. 6.19 seconds there, so we'll take that as our best time. That's on a more level surface. Again, the launch for this car can be, a little bit tricky because it's a manual. This is kind of where the dual clutch model is going to give you a much improved 0 to 60 time. But what I do notice, though, love that sound. There's not much in terms of torque steer, just a little bit of wheel hop when you're trying to get the launch right, which can be a little concerning if you guys aren't used to the wheel hop. I'm really surprised that the launch control is not working properly. When I have it set to 3,000 RPM, it really should hold the revs there at that point, but for some reason it's not holding the revs there. I'll try one more run up ahead, maybe see if I can get it to work properly. But man, this thing is just so much fun in the corners. I love the way this car feels. The seats also hold you in place really nicely. They just have a ton of lateral grip, which is good if you guys are, constantly finding your favorite back row. This thing just eats up corners all day long, and visibility out of the front and the side is good. The view out of the back is also good. The rear spoiler doesn't block your view, which is nice. And this car does come with it comes with automatic emergency braking, lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, but no adaptive cruise control. That's something Hyundai does not offer on this car. Even with the dual clutch automatic. So that's something that some competitors offer. I'm surprised that Hyundai doesn't want to offer that feature, but what a fun car. This thing still puts a huge smile on my face. It's just not the most refined car, and that's something you have to keep in mind when you're driving this vehicle. There are some competitors that have just gotten much better as a daily driver, but the manual model still is a ton of fun. And then in terms of the fuel efficiency, this is where the car is not great. It's rated at 21 in the city, 29 on the highway. I was struggling to get like 280 miles of range on a full tank, and I was getting around 20 mpg in mixed driving, where I was constantly enjoying the sounds of the exhaust. I got around 27 mpg on the highway when I put it in eco mode. So this is kind of where, Hyundai wasn't really concerned with fuel efficiency. Some of its rivals are going to get much better gas mileage in that sense. But still, this is still so fun to drive, and I think I would definitely go with the manual, because the dual clutch, if I remember correctly, the last one I drove was the dual clutch last year. It was still a little too jerky for my taste in day-to-day driving. This is definitely going to be the slower option, but it's the more engaging option. You gotta love that sound, guys. Now, as a driving enthusiast, I'm always going to have a soft spot in my heart for the sport compact segment, because what this car offers, or what this segment offers, is cheap speed. For many people, this is often going to be your first taste into a sporty car, and after spending a full week with the Elantra N, I have to say, this vehicle, even though it's starting to get a little bit old, Hyundai has made some changes to the design of the car that I think makes it look a lot better. The interior definitely isn't going to be the most luxurious, but it is relatively comfortable. You just kind of have to deal with its cheaper materials and Hyundai's older infotainment system. The real magic about this car, however, remains the powertrain. That 2-liter turbocharged engine still has one of the best sounds you're going to hear in the sport compact segment. The 6-speed manual also isn't the best gearbox, but it's also gotten a lot better. It shows that Hyundai has been working very hard to improve all of the driving characteristics of their cars, including their sportier cars, obviously. The ride quality of this vehicle remains a little bit of a sour point, especially, if you guys want something that's a little bit more refined. Maybe I'm just getting older as well. I find the ride, even in comfort, to be a little bit too jarring, but I also noticed it tremendously because I was driving this vehicle back to back with a Volkswagen Golf GTI. The performance, as you guys saw, 0 to 60 can happen in the high 5-second range. It's going to depend, of course, on how well you are at launching a manual transmission car. Even with launch control, this vehicle struggles to put the traction down at times, which makes me believe that Hyundai should consider adding all-wheel drive, which would again make the price even higher, so it would kind of defeat the purpose of offering cheap speed. The backseat of this car is among the biggest in the segment. The trunk is also usable, and I also think the looks have improved with age. Although there are some vehicles in this class that have a little bit more of a refined look, this is definitely something that screams boy racer. But hey, if you want the boy racer look, the Elantra N certainly is going to fulfill or satisfy that itch. Now, if you guys are looking to get your hands on the latest Elantra N, Hyundai has also kept the pricing very affordable, because obviously if you guys are looking at a regular Elantra, they start at around $22,000. The Elantra N line, which is designed to be Hyundai's version of the Civic Si, starts at around $28,000. The Elantra N is still a relatively bargain price at around $34,350 for the base version, which I say base, but all of these come pretty well equipped. Your only option essentially is the dual clutch, where you can also get the sunroof with the dual clutch model with the destination charge and this Atlas white color. My particular test car here, stickers for just over $35,000. So $35,000 is a steal. Now, of course, for that kind of money, this vehicle is priced right in between something like a Honda Civic Si or a Honda Civic Type R, although it is priced more along the lines of like a Volkswagen GTI, because for $35,000 you could get something like a mid-trim Volkswagen GTI, but the Elantra again offers the manual transmission. It offers even more power. It offers an even more engaging driving experience. But again, you have to deal with the fact that the ride quality can be a little bit rough. The interior feels a little bit cheap, but it kind of reminds you of a throwback vehicle. If you guys remember cars like the Dodge Neon SRT4, this almost feels like, the modern day version of it, but at the same time, it still has most of the tech features that you're looking for, and it's still a much more livable and much better built vehicle with one of the best warranties in the industry. All that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2025 Hyundai Elantra N. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.